Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris on today's US Open Round 1 catch up.
Madison Keys makes a shock exit,
Djokovic and Alcaraz make strong starts.
and Emma Raducanu gets her first US Open win since that 2021 triumph.
Chris, today is the 26th of August. We are here to catch up on the Round 1 action at Tennis Weekly HQ from the US Open. It's been a first few days of farewells. We've had Petra Kvitova and Caroline Garcia playing their final ever matches. And we've also had the first ever Sunday start at the US Open, as well as a big upset and Australian Open champion Madison Keys bowing out at the first hurdle. Elsewhere, Alcaraz and Djokovic have made strong starts. Sinner's almost there as well as we're recording. And Venus Williams pushed Karolina Muchova, world number 11, to a third to delight the Arthur Ashe crowd. We are here recording on day 3. Play is underway. So we'll be keeping listeners posted somewhat as we go through all of the action and round up days 1 and 2 as well. But Chris, how are you doing? First few days into the US Open. Enjoying it so far?
I'm enjoying it. There's lots of stories. I kind of forgotten about the farewell side of things. And, Caroline Garcia getting the French reciprocal wild card. That's a hard thing to say. But unfortunately, Kim, I was really willing her on for your sake. But does that mean the Renaissance is over?
The Renaissance has gone. Yeah. The Renaissance did Renee for a while,
Ooh,
but didn't fully
yeah.
come to fruition. Andy Murray's prediction never came
Yes,
true.
to become
It,
a world number one. I mean, what would come after that?
I've lost my historical parallels, but we'll be getting on to her final match later on in today's catch up, along with Kvitova as well. Kind of different storylines there, but yeah, we've got some other bits to catch up on, loads to catch up on. In fairness, we were going to reveal our collector sets as well, but I think there's just so much to catch up on. We'll probably leave that for round 2, which might be a bit calmer, perhaps. Who knows? But I have to say, bit sheepishly, Joel is actually kind of already ahead of us both in the prediction game, isn't he? Because he said Carlos Alcaraz would go through without any tie breaks against Reilly Opelka, and he did nail that prediction.
He did. Unfortunately, I thought that was going to be a close match and couldn't have got that more wrong. I said 3 tie breaks. So, Joel, if you are listening to this, I will concede that you're off to a better start than probably the rest of us.
Yeah, I thought Marin Cilic was going to do better against Alex Bublik, but he's 2 sets down as it stands. So,
Mm.
that Wimbledon, momentum hasn't quite carried on here. And we thought Victoria Mboko would go further, Joel and I, but she's out to your girl, Krejcikova, Chris.
She is. That's the only thing I can hold on to that I didn't get completely wrong. I did back a 2-time slam winner, which doesn't necessarily feel like it was an upset for the ages. But I was slightly surprised, Kim, that we only got a breadstick from Iga Swiatek today. So we did make some predictions as to how many baked goods she'd be dishing out in the early rounds. So the count is on just one from the first round, not the 2 bagels that some of us thought might be happening there.
Yeah, let's start with Swiatek. She played Emiliana Arango. She beat her in about an hour, spot on. But yeah, dropping 3 games, which was perhaps more than we thought. But a very solid, strong first round for Iga Swiatek. She will face Susan Lammens of the Netherlands in the next round, who, yeah, is kind of not perhaps the most well known player. I think it's fair to say, but be interesting to see how many games she may get against Iga in the next round. But yeah, Iga looking very good, especially on serve. Very good, sort of strong opening win. She's looking still like the woman to beat, Chris, would you say, after her opening hour on court?
I think so. I think she looked very impressive, especially as you say on serve. I mean, she didn't face a break point, and she really looks like that has improved significantly. I also just think that something has sort of been released in her, like after the pressure of not delivering at the French Open or on the clay, like she's so used to winning at Wimbledon, and then now coming in and winning Cincinnati. you almost feel like she's just so confident and at ease with the fact that she's back where she belongs, right in the mix for slams. So I thought this was a great opening match for her. And I mean, there's not really much you can fault her on here, and you can never really fault her too much at the start of slams. I did see a statistic here that she is the first player since Serena Williams to win at least 26 of her first 27 Grand Slam openers. Williams actually won her first 46 in a row. That's from the 1998 Australian Open until 2012. Do you know who snapped that streak for Serena?
I
Can you
do actually,
remember? Oh, you
because
do?
I recently watched the Serena Williams documentary that was on the BBC in the UK. I'm not sure if it's been shown internationally, but they did focus on this match. It was Razzano, wasn't it? Virginie Razzano at
It
Roland
was.
Garros.
Well, very well done, Kim. I mean, we don't have quizzes on the Grand Slam podcast, but you're one from one there.
Excellent. Yes. I mean, Iga Swiatek also could get the world number one ranking back off Sabalenka if she wins this title, and depending on what happens to Sabalenka. So, Swiatek very much could well be fully on top by this time, sort of 2 weeks from now. Let's see what unfolds. But if you think about like the likes of Madison Keys, she's already gone out, and we'll get onto her in a bit. But it's Iga just managing to come through and not having those sort of first round, upsets. It's not as easy as it actually may seem when you think about other Grand Slam champions falling out so soon. But
For
yeah, today
sure.
we've
I was also going to say, I mean, some players make it look so easy. I mean, Jannik Sinner's make it look so easy. He's already up 6-1, 6-1, 5-2. We will assume that he's going to get that result. And
yes.
probably you'd say, based on the tennis that I've seen from him so far in that match, he's probably looking the best out of the big contenders. And we will discuss that in more detail. But what were your first thoughts on the world number one returning to the court after sickness? Has he answered the questions? Are we pretty certain he's okay?
I think he's fine. I mean, obviously can't speak 100% for that, but no
You're not
signs
his
of him.
physician, are you,
No,
Kim?
I'm not his personal doctor. I remember, I think it was a tweet or a comment on social media about his first kind of few rounds at Wimbledon. Someone said that they could have been an email. And I was thinking about that
This
earlier
could have
when I
been an
tuned in.
SMS. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was 6-1, 6-1. And I thought, oh, that's very much one way traffic. And Capriva, a bit of a young prospect there, but Sinner absolutely sort of wiping him out at the moment. So not to be, but you know, Sinner, yeah, I think putting to bed those concerns, shall we say. Shall we move on to day two, Chris? Because we've still got obviously a lot of play to come today, but we have had 2 full days already, and it's been the first Sunday start at the US Open. So it feels like we've got more for our round one catch up, but obviously, we haven't, but it feels like a lot already has happened. So let's look back on Monday's action and talking about the other sort of top men's seeds. We had Carlos Alcaraz starting his campaign off over Reilly Opelka. There were no tie breaks. It was 6-4, 7-5, 6-4. So, a solid straight sets victory. And in some ways, the most notable thing about this match was actually Carlos Alcaraz's hair, because he's had a bit of a, I don't know what the word is. He's just shaved it almost off. What did you make of it when you saw him on court?
I mean, there's not much hair to talk about, is what I would say, Kim. We were quite shocked in Paris. I think Joel, especially at the haircut that Alcaraz had. He flies his barber around the world, but we have found out that his barber was not available at this stage. So he actually handed the razor to his brother, Alvaro, who actually did this for him, and it was an accident. So apparently, there was a miscommunication when it came to what Carlos was looking for. And then because his brother got it so wrong with the clippers, or a slip of the clippers, it meant that it was easier to do the buzz cut and just start from there. So he seemed like he was in good spirits. It certainly is quite shocking because he also shaved his beard off. So he does look like a completely different person from when he played the mixed doubles, which also feels like a completely different tournament now. Not great reception, I would say, from some of the players, Kim. I think Francis Tiafoe was particularly damning of this new haircut.
Yes, a buzz cut was the word I was looking for when I was trying to find that earlier. Yeah, Francis TFO, not a fan of it. But I mean, he did say it was horrendous. He wasn't beating around the bush there. But perhaps it
I don't
will
mind it that much, Kim, though. What do you think? It's quite shocking, but hair grows, so it's just
it will grow back, probably healthier, fuller locks. But maybe he just didn't want the weight of it. It's gonna be hot and humid.
mm,
Maybe it was just getting a bit too
it's
much.
going to be
I find,
speedier. Yeah.
yeah, he needs to be more aerodynamic around the court. Maybe that's the it's gonna be the edge over Sinner if it gets there.
Well, Sinner's going
Um,
to shave it all off as well, then maybe.
yeah, they're just all gonna go bald. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a fun storyline, and I look forward to seeing
It
his
grow back.
nice
If he wins the
hair
title, I
come
was
back.
thinking this, he's going to look like the player he did at the start of the tournament.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and I think also sometimes these things are just meant to be like I keep thinking of Stan Wawrinka's shorts. They weren't particularly the
Mm,
nicest shorts, but they worked for him at the French Open that year, didn't they?
okay.
So,
So is that you saying you
um,
don't particularly like it, Kim?
no,
No, she won't be. She won't be giving an opinion on that.
no. Jack Draper, though, in his new outfit, sleeveless, he was on court yesterday, struggled a bit, didn't he? Against Gomez, who was a coach, is sort of suddenly moved across to actually playing on the tour, and Draper making a bit of a meal of it in 4 sets, getting his win, but he wasn't feeling great, was he? And he sort of had to just do his job to get through. Based on what you saw, Chris, is it likely Jack's gonna get to the semis, defend those points, just based on that first round that we've seen?
I mean, he did pick up where he left up, throwing up on the court on Arthur, well, not
Mm.
Arthur Ashe, but the US Open. So I wasn't necessarily particularly impressed with the tennis he played. I think maybe he took the mixed doubles too seriously because he was sort of rocking an arm sleeve, and his first serve was actually down 6 miles an hour based on what he was at when he started. So it does make you think that he's not actually in the best condition coming into this. He did have some time off. He said that he's not able to go kind of like all out on his serve, but he felt kind of physically fine. But there is pain when he does serve. So that's a very different way to start a tournament, feeling that you aren't physically particularly fit. And then, quite strangely, he did say that he needed it in his legs. So he was quite happy that he lost the third set because the level wasn't amazing. Then he felt he got better and better. So if I had an injury, I'd be looking to get through as quickly as possible and play as little tennis as possible in order to kind of get through to the next stage, just get the win and get off court. But it seems like Jack is kind of relishing the opportunity to kind of win ugly and kind of battle his way through these rounds.
Yeah, he did say it with that injury because it's a left arm injury that he's had since Wimbledon. Normally it'd be 8 weeks before he could return to competition. He's at 7 weeks here, so he's a bit of ahead of it. So I guess he's maybe just trying to downplay expectations a little bit as well. If we all know he's sort of dealing with his injuries, coming back, he's not in the best shape, but sometimes that is enough to kind of free you up a little bit
Mm.
as well. I mean, he's got Zizou Bergs next, who will be an even tougher opponent compared to Gomez, who was ranked 203 in the world, you would think. Um, Jack hasn't really had the greatest of slam form this year as it is. So yeah, you sort of massively lowering your threshold for him, Chris, do you think, in light of what we've seen?
Well, I mean, Joel did pick him to have a deep run here and beat Sinner. Based on what I've seen and what
Yeah.
I've seen from Sinner, I'm probably thinking that I'm going to stick with the world number one as my champion for the tournament. Having said that, it's unlucky, the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes is that you don't have the form that you're looking for coming into a tournament. So potentially it's actually the fact that he's just looking to win rounds, defend some of those points, and see how he goes. So I think no expectations would be a good way to go into it for him. And I think probably I've got no real expectations of Jack in this tournament either.
Well, let's take a look at some of the women's action from day two. And the main story really was that Madison Keys knocked out in the first round by Renata Zarazua. This was a real, real epic 6-7, 7-6, 7-5 with the Mexican coming out on top. But it's not something we normally see from Madison Keys. She's normally so consistent at slams, and this was, the first time she's playing a slam at home now that she's actually a slam champion, having won that Australian Open earlier in the year. Perhaps that bit of expectation was weighing on her mind a little bit because she really didn't throw in a very good performance, did she, Chris? 89 unforced errors. It's not something we tend to see from her, is it?
No, that's a colossal number. I was actually doing a quick search to see if that is a record, because surely, I mean, to gift 89 points to your opponent, I mean, it's almost a miracle it was this tight, which does make you think that potentially Zarazua doesn't have too many chances in the next round because she won't be gifted 89 points in round two. That really would be surprising. Having said that, though, you don't actually have to play that well to win. She made 37 unforced errors in that first set and she still won it in a tiebreak. So the most shocking thing to me about this performance is that she was up 3 love in that second set. I thought this is plain sailing. I actually stopped watching at that point because I thought she's steadied the ship. She's going to get through this one. But it did just feel like the nerves got to her. She talked about that. Even her husband and her coach were saying like no one. It's just a sport. Nothing's riding on it. No one cares. Trying to calm her down because clearly he could see that she was getting really really nervous. And maybe it was the expectation of returning to the US Open as a champion and really wanted to kind of like cement herself at the top, having won a slam this year, and maybe push a bit deeper than the quarterfinal showing that she's had, I think, at the French earlier this year. So, I mean, very strange and not really good enough when you think about the level that she can play.
Yeah, really disappointing. I'm sure she would have, we all know she can perform a lot better than this. But it was just one of those bad days at the office. And unfortunately, it's come the first round of a slam at your home event as well. But like her husband said, it's not life or death. It's a sport. So I'm sure she'll take that perspective away from her going forwards.
Hard to
I mean,
process that on court, though, isn't it? When someone's saying that to you and you're in one of the biggest stages in sport with so many people watching you and it's not life or death. And it's like, well, it kind of feels like this is, for me right now, this is a big deal. So I didn't necessarily love that encouragement from the stands because, you're told to take things quite seriously, but then, what are you doing out there if it's not important?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, another player who we usually expect quite a lot of consistency from was Elina Svitolina, but she also lost in straight sets to Anna Bondar. So, you're normally a stalwart Svitolina predictor, Chris, but this one kind of maybe, surprised quite a few people there. Bit of a odd score, that one.
Very odd. I didn't get to catch too much of this match, so I didn't necessarily have too much of a read in terms of what went on here. But it does feel a lot like that last match that Svitolina played at Wimbledon, where she really should have been coming through it, but wasn't able to play the level that she so often plays and brings out the best of her at majors. So I think for me, it's just a bit of a shame because it does mean that I'm starting to think, hang on a minute, maybe, the fairy tale story, her own renaissance might not be happening quite in the same way that other players maybe have got to kind of push on and win that slam. I mean, like Madison Keys, at age 30, is time sort of running out for Svitolina because she's had a lot of opportunities and you don't want to be going out in round one when you really do have a chance to go quite deep.
Yeah, maybe she should have played the mixed doubles with her husband. Perhaps that would have
Perfect
revitalized.
preparation.
Maybe next year. I mean, one player that we have seen back in action recently is Venus Williams. She's returned to the US Open this year, aged 45 as a wild card. And we saw her yesterday up against Karolina Muchova on Arthur Ashe Stadium. And to be fair, she did pretty well. 3 sets it was her defeat, 6-1 in the third. But compared to 5 years ago, where she played Muchova then, it was a very different story, wasn't it, Chris? And she felt a lot more positive about it afterwards.
Yeah, she felt really good about the way that she played. She's very proud of the way that she played. And I think for me, it's so nice to see that if this is the last time she plays there, that she really has done a credit to herself with her performance. Because when I flew into New York, I probably bored everyone with the story enough now. When I flew in, I went straight to Venus Williams' night match 2 years ago, and she got hit off the court by Greek Minin, which is not what I wanted to see in a night session. at the US Open. So I think it's so nice that she did manage to take that set and she did make it competitive. And I think she did just show people that she is deserving of the wild card, because that's a question we'll get to in the second half about some players that get wild cards who are not match fit. I've said this from the start with this Venus comeback. She is match fit. She is competitive. The only difficulty is that you can draw a top player in round one when you're unseeded, and there are no easy matches at Grand Slams, that's for sure. So I think it was so nice to see that she was actually, felt much better about the way that she played. And I just love it when she talks about how grateful she is to have had the opportunity to play feeling better, because she loves the sport. That's why she's there. And I think it's so inspiring because she's been through so much and she still chooses to be there. My question for you, though, Kim, is she said she wishes the next tournament or the next time she plays, they could have more tournaments in the US. So it makes it seem like she might just be taking this approach of just, dipping in, playing some matches when the US swing is on, whether that's kind of Miami and Indian Wells or the US Open. Do you think that we'll see her do that again? Do you think this has inspired her to continue? Or do you think that maybe this was a bit like that Serena performance when she came back, having kind of had to withdraw from Wimbledon against Sasnovich after an ankle injury? It felt like there was unfinished business and she didn't want to go out without putting on a show. Do you feel like this also has kind of like an air of that to it?
It feels like she's not willing to sort of say definitively that she will be retiring, but she almost wants it on her terms, where she wants to dip in and out. If she's feeling healthy and well, she'd like to have those experiences again, but at home, and not have to travel and actually be on the tour week in, week out. But that's going to need to rely on her, staying fit and healthy enough to play, but also tournaments giving her a wild card. And unless they think, oh, this is her final, last hurrah, she can't rely on them on keeping giving those wild cards out year after year just for a select few tournaments. So I think it's a bit, I guess she doesn't want to commit either way to retirement or, starting up on the tour again. And it's a bit ambivalent at the moment. And, does she need to make a decision? Potentially not. I think it's with her, she's got this sort of autoimmune condition, which was diagnosed about 14 years ago. And I guess with that, it probably changes day to day, and she's not able to predict too far in the future. So I suppose it's potentially better just to keep it a bit open-ended.
Yeah, and then when she does play, we can enjoy it. She can hopefully enjoy it again. And she's great for tournaments. I mean, she really drew a big crowd, especially when she was played in Washington, and people love her. So I think that's where a lot of the wild cards do come from, a place like that. But I mean, for Venus, I think it's just so nice that she could have that feeling, of competing on Ash again, which I just think is so special, especially because it is like the biggest stage in tennis, and she's still doing it at 45, which is just, I mean, truly amazing.
Yeah, very inspirational for us all. Let's have a quick break now, Chris, but we'll be back, everyone, in the second half to discuss all the women's action as well from day one, and some of the early men's results, as well as looking at who's said goodbye to the tennis world in their last matches here at the US Open. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And now, before we talk about the very first day's play, we've got to talk about some tennis goodbyes, haven't we, Chris? Because we've had both Petra Kvitova and Caroline Garcia retiring here at the US Open. Like we said earlier, the renaissance is over. Garcia losing in 3 sets to Kamila Rakimova. It's sad to see her go. She's only 31. It feels like she could have a bit more to give, but injuries and just the, wanting to move on, I think has meant that she's pulling up, she's pulling a curtain across her tennis career and moving on to pastures new, perhaps working on her podcast in the future as well. But yeah, I mean, what did you make of her final match, Rakimova? It's a shame she couldn't have sort of gone a little bit further, but falling here at the first hurdle to Garcia.
It would be nice to have seen her play on like a bigger court. This is where she had her best Grand Slam performance, reaching a semi-final. That was the same year that she did have that renaissance, as we talk about it, where she not only did she win the French Open doubles, she also won the end of season finals. And she actually picked up a win over Iga Swiatek in Warsaw at a home soil. So she had a fantastic year that year. Another top 10 finish, and top five ranking at number four. So she really did have some great memories and has played such amazing tennis. I think her clean ball striking, as well as the fact that you just don't know what's going to happen next, a variety as well. I think it's so fun watching her over the years, and I think that's why so many people do enjoy watching her. I think she fell out of love with tennis last year, and I think she knew that she wanted to try and get back to a place of enjoying it, but she knew that she didn't want to continue playing much longer. So I think it's quite a nice end, a nice way for her to end. And I think getting that wild card actually allowed her to have one more moment, which was probably a bit more enjoyable for her than the French Open round one defeat, which was I mean it's tough in front of a home crowd.
Yeah, and that's what she always struggled with during her career was that pressure from the home crowd. And obviously, it's a fantastic she was able to get the French Open's doubles title, but yeah, it was always that just that expectation from the French crowd. I think that really got to her, and I think she will be remembered as someone who did struggle with her nerves on court and
Mm.
keeping it all together. But when she was able to bring it, she played some absolutely lights out tennis, and like you said, world number four, winning the world WTA Tour finals at the end of the year, Cincinnati Open, semi-finals of the US Open 2022. And yeah, fantastic career, really. Much better than a lot of players would ever have hoped for. And, we wish her well. She's recently got married. So I think next phase of her life is beginning. But hopefully we'll see her back in some capacity. And we'll always remember the Renaissance. But Chris, who do you think will be the next player that we can give that Renaissance label to? Is there someone we're willing to earmark for a resurgence like Garcia did in 2022, perhaps?
Well, I'd argue someone's already having it at the moment,
Oh, yes.
potentially. It might have started with Naomi Osaka.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I can kind of make Osaka and Renaissance come together as a one word. It's quite tricky to call it like the Renaissance. Doesn't work. Can't do it. But I do think she's potentially having one. I think if she pulls together a good result at a slam, we could definitely see that happening. I was trying to think who else could have this sort of a title. I think Madison Keys had one at the start of this year for sure. It's hard to know who else, but maybe, the likes of Krejcikova is due one, or even Emma Raducanu. So I've got some names, Kim,
Mm.
but who do you think?
Oh, I like the idea of Raducanu, and we'll discuss her in a bit. We've already maybe discounted
Cilic you'd like,
Svitolina.
actually, wouldn't you?
Cilic, yeah, it doesn't have to be a female player, I have to say. Cam Norrie, I think, is having a
Yes.
little bit of a renaissance. He came through against Corda actually yesterday with Corda retiring. We saw a little bit of a renaissance from him at Wimbledon. Let's hope his mini renaissance continues.
Hmm.
I have to say though, just before we move on, I'll always remember that Garcia match with Katie Boulter at the Billie Jean King Cup in
In
Coventry,
Coventry,
of all
yeah.
places. And I think Joel will also have that up there in his list of
Oh,
most
yeah.
memorable Garcia
We
highlights, I
also
think.
watched Cornet with Garcia. She watched the tennis with us whilst we were in the media area, and she asked me what happened on the point and if it was a good point or not. So yeah, I mean, she's lovely and yeah, super, super nice character. And
Yeah.
we'll always have Coventry, Kim.
I always remember her nails. They were sky blue, which is the color of Coventry, and I always wanted to ask whether that was deliberate or just a coincidence, but I'll never know. I should have asked. So there you go. Don't miss your moment. The other player though that has gone is Petra Kvitova because she lost quite heavily, unfortunately, to Dion Parry, only winning a game. It was a bit of a obliteration, it has to be said, but she's now officially hung up her rackets as well. We kind of thought Wimbledon might have been her last hurrah, but she saved it for the US Open. Um, questionable though. Do you think this was the right farewell? Do you think, given the nature of that last match, it was quite underwhelming, Chris?
I do have an issue when players return because they want to do like a farewell tour, but they don't get themselves into like match fitness or prepared to play against top players because it is a competitive sport. It is something where, if you're not ready to play, you will get found out. And unfortunately, this comeback It's very tough to come back, especially after any time out for whatever reason. Especially obviously if you are coming back from maternity leave after an extended break. It is physically much more challenging. So I think that is one thing. But at the same time, I mean, she hasn't been playing matches leading up to the US Open. So it's more like she wanted to end here, but not that she ever was really competing in the tournament with any hopes of doing anything at all. And I felt like that at Wimbledon because, yes, she had a tough match against Emma Navarro, but it does just feel like this is a goodbye that she would like to make, but she's not actually made the strides that you need to actually make this a positive experience for the fans, as well as kind of to keep the interest there because it was not many people, there were not many people who turned up for this match, which is such a shame because I'm a huge fan of hers, but I just don't think she took this final stage of her career seriously. But then the question is, Kim, do you have to? You
Should
know,
you? Yeah.
should you? Should
She's
you just have a
earned
wild
it,
card and
maybe.
enjoy it
Yeah.
based on the success you had previously? And we did actually ask our listeners before we get into all the positives of her career and how much we've enjoyed watching her. We asked the question, given the fact that Kvitova had only won 5 games in total in her last 2 matches, and they were both at Grand Slam level, and won 1 game against a player ranked outside the top 100. Should retiring champions get a wild card, even if they're not competitive, well, at a competitive level? And 40% said, of course. A lot of people said it's okay, but it's not great. That was another sort of 40%. And then the remainder, very few people said that they didn't really care either way. And a lot of people said, 20% said, give it to new players. So I think people are split, but largely they like to see players celebrated. But I do just think it would have been nice if this one ended at Wimbledon.
Yes, I think that would have been more appropriate given that that's where we associate her with as the two-time slam winner. She's very successful on a grass court. But, we don't, it does sound like we're slating her for having turned up here. Like, how dare she? But aside from that, we have to reflect on her career, which has been a fantastic one. 6 times Billie Jean King Cup winner. She won an Olympic bronze. She's won 9 WTA 1000 level tournaments, obviously 2 slams, 1 WTA finals win as well. So, I mean, it really is a fantastic career that she's had. And, therefore, fine, give her a wild card, one last hurrah. Bit of a shame she couldn't do more in that final match, but we wish her well. What's your overriding memory of Petra Kvitova, as a last note on her career?
It's got to be, being a lefty and kind of the winners she can hit so freely of both wings. I think she just had something that no one else had at the time. She's just such free, clean ball striking. Like it takes your breath away, some of the shots she had. And some of those Wimbledon finals, I mean, against Bouchard, she was just untouchable. And she's one of those players on her day, she could beat absolutely anybody. And such great pedigree, and especially playing for her country. I think another big memory, apart from those Wimbledon titles, is the fact that she won 6 Billie Jean King Cup titles as part of the team for the Czech Republic. So that is an unbelievable feat to achieve for your country. And I even forgot she won a bronze medal as well. So she really has been such a staple at the top of the game. And I mean, coming back as well after that injury from with a knife injury at her flat in a break-in that happened, where it even kind of affected her nerves and tendons in her hand. It's still coming back to make a Australian Open final, just coming short against Osaka. I mean, she has triumphed in so many really challenging situations, and she is one of the most liked people on tour. So I think she'll be really, really missed. And I think we're missing the sort of tennis that she played.
Yes, well said, Chris. I think that sums her career up in like 2 minutes quite nicely. But yeah, let's wish her all the best going forwards. And let's talk now, Chris, about the first day's action. So Sunday at the US Open, because we had the first time ever a Sunday start here to match what they do in like the French Open, for example. Novak Djokovic was in early action at the US Open. Up against Learner Tien, the sort of up and coming American prospect. We thought this might be a bit tight. It was in the second set, but otherwise, Djokovic coming through quite nicely 6-1, 7-6, 6-2 in his first match since the Wimbledon semi finals last month. He now has won 75 straight opening round matches at Grand Slam. So we thought Iga Swiatek had done quite a lot But Novak Djokovic has just taken it to a whole new level with yet another statistic. But what was your impression of Djokovic in his opening match? As it's been a while since we've seen him on court.
Yeah, I mean, he looked very fresh in that first set. I was quite surprised that the second set became so close. Again, he came through really well in the third set, but I do have some questions about some physical issues that he had. It did look like at times after like long rallies, he was almost struggling a little bit. I know there was talk about potentially a blister or something else causing him problem, but physically it did look like at times it was a bit of a test, even though the scoreline doesn't necessarily reflect that. Um, I was thinking about this, Kim. Is it almost a stroke of genius for him not to play a warm-up tournament so he can be as fresh as possible? Because he said he ran out of steam at Wimbledon. But if he's potentially struggling a little bit earlier on in what is quite a straightforward match, do you think that that is a problem or will be a problem moving forward?
I think so. I think that's for me that the reason why I couldn't pick him to be the champion here is that, with what he said at Wimbledon, it's the five setters, but best of five over the 2 week period. Towards the end, he's just flagging. And if we're already seeing signs of that in his opening match, how ready is he? How match fit is he? Given that he hasn't played, which not playing has given him the chance to rest and recuperate and hopefully come in fresher. But has he got enough, preparation in him
Mm.
as well on the other side of that? So, yeah, I don't expect too much. I think he'll still be able to get through to like the semi-finals. I potentially, but I, I'm not. I don't think up against a Sinner or Alcaraz in the final, he's going to have the physicality, which is the first time I'm really sort of saying that about Djokovic, to be fair. And write him off at our peril, perhaps. But I do want to talk about his jacket, though, because he did show all the fans a very exciting, interesting, fashionable. I'm not sure if it's a fashion fave or faux pas, but Lacoste have made him a custom jacket where they've got balls on the back of his jacket in the sort of rough location of the countries of the four Grand Slams and the color of the court surface,
Mm.
sort of stuck onto the back of this white jacket. Kind of hard to explain. Listeners, you might
Mm.
need to do a bit of googling, but yeah, a bit of an interesting add on there, Chris. I don't know what your take is. Would
Yeah.
that be something you would want to wear?
I mean, it is, custom Lacoste, so I would definitely put it on in a heartbeat. But it does remind me of, when you're at a museum and they have like the 3D maps that are in kind of the center of the room and you can light up different parts. It feels like it's just showing where those are for almost like a children's learning activity, which I guess probably won't go down too well, with the creative director of Lacoste. But I mean, we do love to see a fashion moment. I'm not sure this is going to live up to what Naomi Osaka potentially might be wearing. She said it is very much out there, but he's been having a few fashion moments, hasn't he, Kim? Because Lacoste also went from the classic crocodile to a goat symbol and made some custom goat Lacoste items for Novak Djokovic ahead of the US Open. And I was wondering, Kim, should I be worried that there's so much going on, around Djokovic and Lacoste? Because it feels like they've never made this big a deal about the fact that they do have the world's greatest tennis player of all time on their roster. And are they thinking, oh, is time running out? Let's do everything that we can before he might not be there to promote it. Or do you think I'm just reading into it too much?
Or maybe it's good that they haven't done this sort of stuff before because we might have had a load more wacky creations
Yeah.
being made. But no, I think it might be a sense of, oh, how much longer has he got? We should really do something to honor, his career and play around with this a bit, which is fine. I appreciate the geographical nature of his jacket. And yeah, I just want where's the little button you can press to light up the different balls? Maybe they could put a bit of like a LED thing into it.
Yeah,
But
it'd be
maybe we could come
lovely.
up with suggestions for Lacoste. What can they do to honor Djokovic in the fashion stakes for his
He could
last
come in a
year or
full
so on
goat
tour?
costume, goat themed outfit. That could be something,
That would be
really,
fun.
really
Yeah.
push the boundaries. But again, we are in kind of like the kids section a bit more there, aren't we, with our
Yeah.
suggestions?
Well, in other news, on the men's draw on Sunday even, we had Ben Shelton and Taylor Fritz winning through quite comfortably, both of them. It's the first time since 2007 that we've had two American men in the top 8 of the seedings, and they are both so far safely through. So, yeah, really possibly the best chance in a long while for America to have a male champion here. Roddick being the last American to win back in 2003 on the men's side. But we'll see. They're going to have to get through Sinner or Alcaraz, but maybe one of them two can be the one to do it. One player, though, Chris, that won't be competing anymore at the US Open is Daniil Medvedev, former champion. We know he's had an interesting relationship with the US Open crowd previously, but his opener against Benjamin Bonzi, well, he had a bit of a meltdown, didn't he? Another meltdown, we should say. And it was a bit of an interesting one, caused by a photographer walking on court when he shouldn't have been. And that's actually led to the photographer having their credentials revoked. So they've been kicked out of the tournament. And Medvedev's on his way home as well. So I wonder if you could just summarize what happened for any of our listeners who haven't already heard or seen about this.
Well, firstly, you know it's serious when a credential is removed because I've seen some people do some pretty crazy things and they managed to keep the credential. So this was very bad form from the photographer who it should be common knowledge. You don't go on the court whilst play is on. I mean, obviously, you're able to move around in the stands now in between games. And for some tournaments, you can kind of walk in whenever, but you can never just walk onto the court. He had no business there at all. So what happened was this was at a very key moment around match point. This was in the third set. It did go much deeper than that in the end. But because he came onto the court and this was in between a first and second serve, it meant that the umpire, Greg Allensworth, did actually give him a first serve back, having missed the first serve previously. And Daniil Medvedev lost it. He completely lost it because of the fact that the first serve was given back to him. The problem here is that if there is a disruption and it is loose in the rules, then you are allowed to give a first serve back because they've been disrupted by something that's happened or something has stopped their natural rhythm. So I think a few people think, oh, actually, it wasn't like long enough for that to happen. But ultimately, the rule is open to interpretation a little bit. But I mean, Medvedev went way too far, I feel, when it came to this in terms of what he was saying, how he was acting, the gestures he was doing, and the complete lack of reflection afterwards in terms of how he assessed himself as not having done anything wrong. So I do think that this has gone too far. And I mean, we've seen this too many times now, haven't we?
We have. It's nothing new under the sun. And I think he's just getting even more of a name for himself for all the wrong reasons. You know, I had sympathy with him in terms of that initial decision. You know, I can totally understand that, yeah, it probably should have been a second serve, not a first serve. But, you know, those are the rules of the game and you just got to get on with it. And, you know, he managed to turn the match around and get to a fifth set, but it you know, ultimately Bonzi came through with the win and Medvedev, even after the match, you know, failing to see that he did anything wrong. And he actually said that he thought Bonzi should get fined for apparently receiving too much coaching, even though it is now legal to receive it on tour. So, yeah, I think he's having a career slide. He's only won one Grand Slam match this year. And I think his mentality is just totally not in the right place. And previously he was able to maybe channel some of this outrage to produce good tennis, but this time it's just not matching up and he needs to go away and do some reflecting, I think.
It does feel like, do you think that's what he was doing also in these moments where he kind of chooses to get really riled up? Is he trying to like get himself going?
Get that energy going
Yeah,
again.
do you think he thinks he's fueled by it? But it just seems like it can go one of two ways. And sure, he did get himself back into it, but it's very much like the way he finished the Norrie match, being up, having won kind of a set, I mean, pretty convincingly, and then he ends up losing it. And so often doesn't lose it in these big matches previously before this year. So it is a bit of a crunch point for him because this is not rock solid, you know, I'm a human wall, Medvedev, beat me if you can, because he'll be able to go for 100 sets if he needs to. This really is. It's almost like a bit of a petulant child at times on court. We got to remember he's a Grand Slam champion. He's a very successful tennis player, and he's also, he's playing at the highest level of the game, and this is how he's behaving. So I'd like to see him stop this. I'd like to see him kind of stop kind of doing this because it is distracting for a tournament. And sure, it might be entertaining for some people, but I mean, 6 minutes of booing, pretty much just to kind of break the concentration of your opponent, kind of riling the crowd up in that way. You just think, can't we just get on and play the tennis?
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Yeah, it's not a good look,
You
is it? He
don't
needs
like
to
this
go
sort of
away.
behavior, do you?
I don't. No, I like the nice, respectful, I'm not going to slam my racket behavior. And we
He
don't
did
see that
really slam
as
his racket, though.
much.
That was a
Yeah,
wild racket break. I mean, if we're rating racket breaks, he does score a 10 out of 10 for that.
it was up there. It
Yeah.
was. Well, Chris, from one US Open champion to another, let's talk about Emma Raducanu. She was very well behaved, but she had a very different match, a very comfortable scoreline in her opener, 6-1, 6-2 over Aina Shibahara, the qualifier from Japan. And this was actually Emma's first victory since she won the title 4 years ago, only taking it just over an hour to get the win. And what's even more perhaps positive for her is that she will no longer have to face Kudermetova in the second round because Kudermetova was knocked out by a Polish qualifier, I think it was a Tien. So it's a good second round for Emma as well to go on to potentially play Rybakina in the third. But how impressed were you with Emma's opener?
Well, I actually think she's Indonesian. I think
Oh,
that's the
Indonesian.
yeah.
I completely missed that
I think it's
flag.
the
It's not a
flag.
Polish flag, is
Yeah,
it? It's the other way around.
it's the other
Oh,
way
that's
around.
embarrassing.
It's not
I
not
apologize, listeners.
no. It's just a very easy mistake to make, but I thought probably best to clarify it.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
she will be very pleased. I mean, Joel would have had no idea, but she would have been. She'd be very pleased that she got the win and got the win in the way that she did because, I mean, she only made 6 unforced errors. This felt like a completely different Raducanu to the Raducanus that we've seen at the US Open since she triumphed. And she said that it was the first time that she's been excited coming into the US Open, I think, because there's so much media negativity around her that she never was really looking forward to it because it was almost like it was people were looking to bring her down in this moment, and this was the calendar point where they particularly enjoyed doing that. I think it's what she kind of communicated, but that's kind of me summarizing it as opposed to what she said verbatim. But I think it's so great seeing that she's built a great season up to this point, and I think that's what's so nice about her playing more tennis is that she is more confident. She's much happy in her game, and she is winning matches in a way that Emma Raducanu did win matches at that US Open. I mean, 6-1, 6-2, just over an hour. It's her quickest Grand Slam win that she's had. It's fantastic to see that she's playing such free tennis, especially considering this has been a place that she's been pretty tight since she won the title. So it feels like we're coming full circle, and maybe this will be another chance for her to do something really special here.
Yeah, enough time has maybe passed for people to not be thinking, oh, she won it recently, and what can she do again? She's almost like a free agent now again, which is nice. Sonia Cartal and Katie Boulter, on a British note, did both lose today, sadly, but they were playing kind of seeded, higher ranked opponents in Haddad Meyer and Kostic. So, fair enough. All hopes remain with Emma. But in other news, on day one, we saw Arina Sabalenka come through against Masarova, 7-5, 6-1. Bit of a shaky start to that match, bit of a tight first set, but defending champion lives on into round two. Interestingly, Chris, she's got Max Mirnyi in her box. She's brought him in as an add-on to her team, and she'd said now you can call her team Beauty and the Beast, in a homage to Max Mirnyi's nickname as I think the Beast. So I thought that was quite a fun
Wow.
addition. So yeah, because he was quite. Oh, I remember him just being very tall on a tennis court, very successful in doubles, especially.
He was very tall. I think he actually won the mixed doubles gold medal with Azarenka
Yes,
previously. So,
at London.
oh gosh, that was against Murray and Robson. So we shouldn't talk
Yes.
about that. I shouldn't bring that up. But I mean, he's a player with a lot of experience. Clearly, they've known each other for a long period of time. It's quite interesting to see that this is an addition that's been brought in. I know that she's trying to add more variety to her game, especially at Wimbledon. She was trying to kind of volley more and finish at net more. Is that something that she might be looking to do a bit more at the US Open so that when it gets to that kind of crunch time, she can rely on coming in rather than kind of staying back where it can get a bit, well, it can go off the rails sometimes. So I really like the idea that she's got some new energy in there because it hasn't been the best Grand Slam season that she's ever had. Obviously, hasn't won a Grand Slam this year. So I always think that kind of getting a different perspective if things aren't necessarily going the right way. I think it's nice that she's adding someone without kind of a big swap. It feels like a nice addition.
Yeah. And just finally, I think one of the matches of the first day was Alex Eala against Clara Tauson, with Eala winning against Tauson in a last set tiebreak. It was quite a dramatic finish, very, very close. Tauson, unfortunately, not able to kind of live up to her seeding and her kind of new higher ranking. And Eala, who we saw had some fantastic results earlier in the season and is a real, young prospect to watch. She came good. She got the win. And she is through to the second round. But that was a real corker on day one, wasn't it, Chris?
It was great. She came back for, I think, 5-2 down in the third. I was watching that final set tiebreak, and it was winner after winner. They were both really going for broke, and I absolutely loved it. I also loved the fact that this is the first win for a player from the Philippines at a major. I actually thought she already did this, but she hasn't. She's done it. It was a huge moment for her. And I'm hoping that she heard from Rafa afterwards, being, a Rafa Academy graduate herself.
Well, Coleman Wong, who's another Rafa Academy-ite, did get a message from Rafa after his win. So I'd hope so. But it's nice to see, as a Rafa fan myself, it's nice to see Team Rafa Academy doing well out at other slams and on tour. So yeah, watch this space. Let's see what she can do in the next round. That does wrap up our opening rounds coverage at the US Open. Obviously, still plenty of matches underway as we are recording. The time difference gets in the way a bit here, doesn't it, Chris? But Jannik Sinner has completed his victory. Bublik's beaten Cilic. And I think we've now got Billy Harris on court for the Brits. So plenty
Yes.
still to watch, which we'll be going off to get our teeth into whilst we package this up ready for everyone to listen to. We'll be back, though, in a couple of days' time for our round two catch-up. We hope you've enjoyed today's ride with us. Do remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of action from the US Open. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favourite podcast platforms out there.
And if you love what you're hearing, then do make sure to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can stay connected with us on social media. You can see all of our clips, all of our predictions. You can look back on and see just how badly they've gone already. And you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads. And also, you can email us. We have had a mailbag that we will be addressing during the US Open. We don't normally do a mailbag, so we'll be waiting for maybe a slightly less action-packed day to go through that one. But you can drop us an email, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, if you'd like to ask us a question. And you can visit our sort of revamped website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
Absolutely. And we'll be back on Thursday for our US Open round two catch up and hopefully revealing our collector set picks as well then. Well, our predictions, not our picks. You've all sent your predictions in. Thank you very much for entering, for those of you who have. Wishing you all the best of luck there. And let's see what the next 2 days bring us out in Flushing Meadows. But until then, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.